Good morning, guys, or afternoon, whatever it happens to be. Module 6 is up next, so let's go ahead and get started. Remember, it's just a brief overview. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I will try to hit the high points and kind of let you know what's going to be on the quiz. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get busy. All right, so here we are in, oops, that's not the right page. Let's go back to modules. Module 6. Basically, Module 6 covers wireless networking. So we're going to cover how to set up a wireless network. That will be our lab, or one of our labs for the day on Thursday. So be prepared for that. Objectives: describe the characteristics of wireless transmissions. Also explain what 802.11 is. Plan a Wi-Fi network, secure it, and troubleshoot it if it has problems. Characteristics: they are a network that transmits signals through radio frequency. Wired and wireless signals share similarities. They're all layer 3 and higher protocols. The nature of the atmosphere makes wireless transmission different from wired transmissions. It's not nearly as constant as a wired transmission. It's not quite as reliable. The wireless spectrum is a range of EMF, or electromagnetic frequencies, used for data and voice. It goes from 9 kilohertz, which is ultra low frequency, to 300 gigahertz. Some bands have only a single frequency and some are multi. RFID, radio frequency identification, that's a little tag that uses that's what the chip in an RFID tag uses, so it can transmit and receive. Near-field communication is a form of RFID that transmits wirelessly over very short distances. I'll let you read these things. I'm not going to go. If you've ever seen these NFC tags before, you can use them to keep up with your stuff, like your keys. Z-Wave, if you've got any kind of Philips Hue hub or anything like that, these Z-Wave, basically it's a protocol that allows you to automate things in your house. It is a wireless signal, just like Wi-Fi is, but it's from a different or 4 different devices, and it allows you to connect like Philips Hue lights or automatic garage door openers, those things like that. And Zigbee is a small battery-conserving wireless technology. It handles small amounts of data, and once again, it's for Internet of Things control. Bluetooth, you should be familiar with. Everybody probably has a set of Bluetooth headphones somewhere, and basically that's a MAN, a band, I guess you'd call it, a body area network. The range is about 10 feet. So when you get past 10 feet on most Bluetooth devices, you're getting out to the edge of where it can reach. Infrared was very common. In fact, it was a very common way to transmit data from phone to phone. You had infrared projectors in the back of your phone. You put your phone next to someone else's phone and you could send them infrared signals. You could also send documents to a printer from a phone using infrared. But now IR is just not that, because it's slow, it's just not that common. Also because Wi-Fi is just easier to use and Bluetooth's easier to use. There's the entire spectrum, and you can check that out for yourself. You don't have to know like every single frequency, but it would be a good idea to be familiar with what the low end and the high end are, things like that. Most wireless devices have one of 2 technologies: frequency hopping or direct sequence spread. Most wireless devices right now, the standard is 2.4 gigahertz. That can be a problem if you happen to have a client or an office that still has old landlines. Use wireless handsets, because they also use 2.4 gigahertz. Every time the phone rings, your internet's going to drop. I have experienced that firsthand with customers. Antennas, these are not the typical antenna that you'd ordinarily see. If you look around and see white squares or white discs plugged into the wall, those are usually wireless antennas. Propagation, that is a reference to the way a wave travels. It can be linear, or it can be from a point out in all directions. Attenuation: as the wave gets further away, it gets weaker. This is also true in wired communication. As the wire gets longer, the signal gets weaker. Fading is what happens as the signal runs into obstacles. It loses energy, so as it goes through a wall, it becomes less and less powerful. Interference, of course, we have EMF interference. Wireless signals are really vulnerable to EMF. Refraction, reflection, scattering, you need to know what those are. This is all vocabulary for the most part. This is what a wireless router has to do to get signals to various rooms in your house. Wireless LANs work in OSI layers 1 and 2. They support TCP higher layer OSI protocols. Notable wireless standards, 802.11b, probably still the most common, but 802.11n is the standard nowadays. You read over the different abbreviations and different vocabulary words here as well. But you need to be familiar with what 802.11 is. Wireless topologies, scanning, association, you need to know what those mean. You need to know what the SSID is, and you need to know how to set it in a router. That's going to be part of what we do in our lab. So you need to be familiar with setting the system ID in a router. More vocabulary words. This is what a wireless topology would be for a network. Okay, which type of identifier allows wireless clients to roam freely? And that would be ESSID, extended service. Extended service means that you can go from one antenna to another and it will pick up without loss of signal. Okay, WLAN is basically a wireless local area network, so it's a short range. Most wireless is going to be short range unless it's very special. Most of it's going to be within one single, like a floor of a building or one single area within a building. You're going to figure out the design, what kind of AP you're going to use, and also particularly in a smaller office, what they call a SOHO, small office, home office network, you really only need one access point, and so that's going to be your wireless router. A lot of homes also include Internet of Things devices, which is Ring and Nest doorbells and security cameras, garage door openers that work off the internet, things like that. Those are Internet of Things devices. Essentially, you're connecting smart devices to the internet. Health monitors, speakers, thermostats, security cameras, smart refrigerators. Some refrigerators have a webcam inside them to tell you when your milk is out, that sort of thing. Got to consider distance, type, and number of obstacles. This means walls and ceilings that the signal has to go through, the whole area of coverage, and also sources of EMF interference. A site survey basically is going around the area and determining where the access points need to be placed to make sure that these things up here are the least amount of trouble possible. And so you need to know the steps in a site survey. Basically, you're going to design what the wireless, where the wireless endpoints are, what they do. In an enterprise scale wireless network, that's something like in a multi-story building, you're going to have multiple wireless antennas all plugged into the network. Then you can configure the router, particularly in a SOHO router, small office, home office router. It's not that complicated, but there are some settings, particularly whether or not to broadcast the SSID, also what kind of security to use, and whether or not to set it up for DHCP. Onboarding and offboarding, you need to consider those things. Basically, moat wipe. What that is if your AP is lost or stolen, you should be able to connect to it remotely and basically wipe out the settings so people can't get your Wi-Fi information. 802.11 has no security, so you have to use a security protocol like WEP, which no one should ever use because it's been cracked, or WPA. There are a lot of newer ones that work better, but what they call WEP or WEP security, that one should never be used. WPA is probably the standard. Temporal key integrate protocol is a type of WPA. Once again, web-based devices, don't use them. You're just asking to be hacked. WPA2, newer version. You need to know the different protocols and the security settings for those protocols. Considerations for security, AP and antenna placement. Put them places where they are in security camera range. Put them up away from people where they can't reach them. Decide whether you want to have a guest network. That means basically a network for customers and guests that come into your office. They can get to the internet, but they cannot get to like your file servers or your printers, things like that. Wireless clients should be associated in their own little subnet. They should be isolated. Captive portal, we'll talk about that. Basically, you've ever gone to a hotel and there's a website that when you connect to their Wi-Fi, it dumps you to this website. You have to click, maybe put your room number or your name or something like that, and then click to finally connect. You need to be familiar with those things. War driving. These are different hacking methods. Used to, now this is not so common anymore, but in war driving, you would drive around neighborhoods with a directional antenna connected to your Wi-Fi router and battery operated inside a car, and you would look for wireless networks that you could hack and use to send information privately. And then war chalking, basically, as you drive around, you mark the sidewalk with chalk to make it vulnerable or to make it known to other hackers. A rogue AP planted in the network's shield. So basically what happens here is you get a cloned AP, and the evil twin is a cloned AP that you hang up in somebody else's area, but it allows you to connect to their network. WPA attacks, these are intercepting network keys, and also WPS involves using a pin to brute force. WPS is also easily cracked. Okay, spectrum analyzers, we'll talk about those. Also wireless analyzers, basically tools to help you analyze a wireless signal. And then things that a wireless tool needs to be able to do. Wireless configuration pitfalls to avoid. So these are troubleshooting steps. Usually it's incorrect passphrase is probably the most common. Encryption protocol, you're doing WPA EAP, and they have it set to TKS, then it's not going to connect. Also, if you're trying to connect to the wrong SSID. Static channel utilization, nobody does that. Mismatched RF band, also that doesn't happen very often. Mismatched standards, somebody's trying to use 802.11a on an 802.11n network. Those kind of things are troubleshooting things to check. And slow connection, basically, attenuation's probably the biggest one. As you get further away from the network, APs and antennas, it's harder and harder to connect. But these are different troubleshooting things you need to look at. Which device will let you determine all frequencies within a scanned range? And that would be a spectrum analyzer. It checks the whole frequency and picks up on active signals. All right, so our summary. Now that the lesson's over, you should be able to describe the characteristics of wireless transmissions. You should be able to look at things like frequencies and distances, things like that. Describe 802.11 standards and the different versions that are available, 802.11a, b, d, n, things like that. Plan a Wi-Fi network. You do a site survey. You look around and see where you're going to need your antennas. Secure it. You need to know what security protocols to use and, more importantly, which ones not to use. And finally, troubleshoot a Wi-Fi network. There are two basic, either no connection at all or slow connection. You need to know the troubleshooting possibilities for those two things. If you've got those 5 things down, then you have the information that you need for this module. All right, guys, I hope this is going well. Hope you're having a good time in class and that you're staying caught up. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you on Thursday night. Have a good day.